Hello! For part two, I'm going to be discussing different situations that I came into contact with my friend and how I implemented um, my plan to kind of fix that. So the first time I recognized this behavior was probably my first big fight with my friend or really big conflict. It was because I had taken on so many different times where I had gotten in little conflicts with her that I kept pushing them aside because I never actually addressed those conflicts. So what had happened was she had done a particular behavior that had upset me, and it was one of the smaller ones, but where I had dealt with so many smaller behaviors that were upsetting me in conflict that it caused me to, I guess, just blow a fuse pretty much. Like if a water bottle of little ones kept getting filled up, it overflowed. So I ended up just deciding that I was not going to be her friend anymore, and I didn't tell her at all. I just kind of left her house, and then I blocked her off everything, and then I told my dad, I was like, I'm not friends with her anymore, and she's the only friend that I have, really. Um, And then he blocked her, but my dad, he doesn't know how to communicate really well either. So he texted her and said unfriend. So that's how she knew that I had blocked her. So we did end up making up. Spoiler. Um, but we did argue there for a second, and I found that she tried to gaslight me out of my feelings, and that when I listed all of the different conflicts of what she did, she tried to kind of discredit them and so that they didn't happen, if that makes sense, hence the gaslighting. And that just didn't really sit right with me. And then finally, we were like kind of on agreed upon terms, and then I had her pick me up. And then we talked about it, and it kind of resolved. We talked about our feelings and everything like that, and that part kind of resolved itself. But there's still the matter of that she has these continual behaviors that I have not tried to communicate with her that upset me. I did a little bit with that conflict, but not a lot in the way that I would like to. So the first one that I noticed was, so I'm going through CNA classes right now, hence why I'm struggling in this class, but I'm going through CNA classes right now, but before that I started as a temporary aide. And as a temporary aide, I worked with my friend, and we were told by a nurse to get a set of vitals. So when you do vitals in residence, you take their blood pressure, their temperature, their respiratory, and then you take their... Clearly I'm not doing well in the class. Oh, their pulse. And then the nurse had said, she highlighted the people that needed their blood pressure taken. She was like, these people need their blood pressure taken. And then the other people, they just need the other vitals taken. So the people who needed their blood pressure taken, they needed their blood pressure and all the rest of the vitals. The people who didn't have the blood pressure, they just got all the other vitals but the blood pressure. So then we go into our rooms and we start taking people's vitals. And she had told one of the residents that he didn't need to do any of his other vitals. And I was like, hey, like, you do have to do the rest of his vitals. And then she said, no, we don't. And I said, yes, you do have to do the rest of the vitals on them. And she goes, no, we literally don't. The nurse just explained that to us. And I was like, no, that's not what she said. We definitely have to get the rest of their vitals. And she was like, well, fine, then you go ask the nurse. So I was like, okay, I will go ask the nurse. So I walked up to the nurse and I said, hey, you meant that the people with blood pressure, they also need to get the rest of their vitals, correct? And the nurse said, yes, they do. So I went back to her and I was like, hey, the nurse said that we do need to get the rest of their the rest of their vitals and not just their blood pressure. And then she was like, oh. So she kind of, I find that, and it's happened in multiple situations, but in situations where I'm not necessarily correcting her, well, I'm correcting her, but it's not like I'm like telling her what to do. I'm just letting her know. Like, I'm letting her know information. Do you know what I mean? Like, I was telling her that we need to do this as two people that are working as coworkers. She's also my coworker. I guess that could be like a communication thing too, but we're more friends than we are coworkers. She will try to correct me even if she has misinformation, as if I would lie to her, if that makes sense. And it could be smaller things. Like, I could be like, hey, like, you need to put that rock in that box, like, it might get wet, or something like that. And then she'd be like, no, I don't. Okay. And then she does. And then she was wrong, and I was just trying to be friendly and helpful and then correct her so she doesn't mess up. Do you know what I mean? As if you were gonna respond. So when that had happened, I was really, really upset, and I didn't want to say anything. I had got a little bit defensive whenever it happened because she was trying to correct me on something that I knew. I knew that's what the nurse said. So later after work, when we were riding back with each other, I said, hey, why did you do that today? Like, you made me really upset today. And she said, do what? And I explained the situation to her, and I was like, yeah, you were correcting me even though I knew, like, I was trying to be nice and tell you that that's what we needed to do, and you just went ahead and kept saying that was not what we had to do. And then after I had said it, she didn't say anything. I don't know if she didn't want to admit the fact that she was wrong, or I don't know. I don't know if maybe it's something that she hasn't really looked at or was self-aware in herself that she doesn't. But I had asked her why she had did this particular behavior, and she had no idea what to say. So that was how that went. The other ones that she would do is if I had to study, if I had made plans with her to study, or she had even called me and asked me to come over, I would end up moving around my plans, being like, oh yeah, I can come over, and delegating this time to her as she has asked me to come over. And I would come over and she would not be there. She wouldn't be at her house, or she would hang out with somebody else, and I would show up to her house and then nobody was there. Or I would be like, hey, can you help me study? And then she wouldn't help me study at all. And the way that I kind of dealt with that situation was I tried to, when I got there, be like, hey, are you gonna help me study? If not, I'm gonna leave. So instead of just like waiting for her to help me study or stuff like that, then I would just kind of leave her house. Because if she wasn't going to delegate time to help me study, then I wasn't going to study with her. Or if I had asked her to help me study, then I would be like, hey, are you actually going to help me study? Like, you don't have anything else to do? Like, I would try to make sure that she would be actually doing this plan with me instead of just leaving me and be like, hey, I don't want to show up at your house and you not be there. So that's how I kind of dealt with that situation. I can't really think of a lot that she does. Oh, yeah, I can actually. Whenever we're giving advice, so you know how you would go to your friends for advice, I go to talk to her about certain situations that I'm struggling with, and she doesn't really give me advice. She's kind of just like, oh, I'm sorry, like, which some people really just don't know how to, but as somebody that, whenever she comes to me with my problems, I try to find a solution for her, and I try to give her advice as to what I would think is correct, regardless of being with her, kind of a more of, like, ethically what would be right, as opposed to, like, biasly because I'm her friend. So, like, if she cheated on her boyfriend, then I would immediately be like, hey, that behavior is wrong. You probably shouldn't do that, but you did. And it's not really okay, but I'm not gonna scold you about it. Instead, I'm gonna try to help you to get out of this situation or understand maybe why you've done that in your relationship or just different things like that, and give my advice and then encourage that she is able to do whatever she wants and she doesn't really have to take my advice, but it is here if she wants it. She doesn't really do that at all. And then also whenever she so whenever I really don't ask her for advice anymore, and the first conflict I brought that up, and I have noticed that she put in more effort to try to give me better advice, or when I was upset she would give me better advice. For the last one, I noticed that when I would make plans with her, I made plans with her to pick her up from a certain place and then drive her car back to my house so it wouldn't be in a unfamiliar kind of get robbed place. And she had miscommunicated with the person that she was hanging out with. So because of this, it caused me more effort and time than what I had originally agreed on. So I stood my ground and I told her, hey, like, you're gonna have to figure out this situation yourself. This was a problem of your own miscommunication, so you will have to fix it. Instead of me going and fixing it for her, I made her fix it. And she did, but I think she might have got a little upset about that. But I wasn't putting in an over amount of effort than what was agreed on. So I noticed a lot in our relationship that I would put in a bunch of this effort to be friends, and then she was doing kind of the bare minimum, or I don't want to say the bare minimum. She's not like terrible friends. Probably, I mean, I hope she doesn't view my YouTube videos. But it was a little lacking as opposed to what I was giving. And that's pretty much all for my conflicts. I tried to address them by not sacrificing myself and my feelings for somebody else's feelings. I tried to effectively communicate in the moment of the situation or a little bit after the situation whenever I was upset. And then I tried to discuss our feelings and how that was. And then I tried to listen to what she had to say as well. Which I know I probably, when I tell stories, I just ramble, but that is what happened.